and hopefully puts us at the point that we're at now. And one of the things that we're looking at the brain and the cranial nerves. So we're looking through these parts of the brain. And we know that if we look at the brain, got the cerebrum, brainstem, cerebellum, okay? This chapter is going to talk to you about the cranial nerves that exit at this point. So we left off at this point right here where we're looking at areas of the brainstem. One of the things about the brainstem is the area for primitive functions. It's going to be a lot of what helps you maintain your homeostasis. So we left off because I think one of the things that I mentioned is an area that we're going to cover in this region is one that is left over from the point where development began. All right? In other words, that's how primitive it is. It goes all the way back to where egg and sperm meet, and we start having one cell make two, two make four, and so forth. It's the area of that development that didn't change, okay, evolutionarily or anything. So when we begin to look at these areas, we're going to find that medulla, the pons, we're going to have the area that's going to be considered the brainstem as a whole. And if we begin to break it down, the medulla oblongata, and like I said, I can't talk about this without thinking about Waterboy, but anyway, the medulla oblongata, the most inferior portion, the portion that's going to meet the spinal cord. Now, it's going to have those ascending and descending nerve tracts, meaning they're going to be very prominent on the medulla oblongata. Now, what did we say was meant by the term nuclei? A lot of dense what? Dense nerve cell bodies. Okay, so we're going to have an area of the nerve cell bodies, and this time it's going to be to gray matter on the inside. Now the medulla oblongata, check this out. Heart rate, blood vessel diameter, respiration, swallowing, vomiting, hiccuping, coughing, sneezing. It's involved in a lot of the things. Think about, first of all, heart, breathing, digestion. So this is a lot of just the primitive functions. One of the things that's very prominent in the structure of the medulla oblongata are the pyramids. Now, on the pyramids, these are going to be our descending nerve tracts. It is going to be an area for the fibers. Just keep it back there.
Someone signed in the wrong spot. They signed in my spot instead of their spot. Desert? Oh.
The fibers decussate, and therefore, this is where we get the idea where left is right, right is left. Okay? Now that's part of the cerebrum too. Okay? And the way these fibers cross over, the information that gets passed, for the most part, yes, we do look at it as right controls the left, left controls the right. Now something else that associates with the medulla are the olives. And they're termed that because it's exactly what they look like. They look like an olive. They're on the anterior surface. The nuclei in this area, balance, coordination, modulation of sound from the inner ear. If we didn't have some way to help regulate the sound, we'd be deaf within seconds from our own voice. We'll come back to that when we get into the chapter on the special senses. In this area of the brain, the medulla oblongata, the cranial nerves that are associated with it, 5, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's quite a few of those cranial nerves associated with the medulla oblongata. Now the pons, this one, move up just a notch, superior to the medulla oblongata. It has both ascending and descending tracts. Now, in the nuclei that exist in this area, what we're going to find, these nuclei, based on their names and the terms that are associated with them, it's letting somebody who's in like neurology, for example, know what area they're dealing with, okay? Blood supply to that area, this sort of thing. I'm not asking you guys to remember that, okay? I'll show you a slice through these areas, and you can get an idea of why it may have the name that it has, okay? Now, the pontine area, this is on an anterior portion of the pons. It is going to be a relay area, all right? A relay area between my cerebrum and my cerebellum. The pontine area is going to be a relay area between my cerebrum and my cerebellum. This is a connection that will exist between these other two areas of the brain. On the posterior portion of the pons, we're going to get cranial nerves 5 through 9. We do find in this region of the brain a sleep center, which is going to help coordinate our circadian rhythms. Another area that we're going to find in the pons is a respiratory center. This is what will coordinate with an area in the medulla to help control respiration rates, to help control breathing. The midbrain, also called the mesencephalon from the early days of development. It's smaller, and this one is superior to the pons. So, midbrain, pons, medulla, spinal cord. I'm having to point right here because I can't point through the roof, through the base, through the roof of my mouth, up to the area of the brain where I would find this brain stem, okay? So if you think about, if you could, just right up to the brain tissue, okay? This is how the brain stem would be. You would have your midbrain, your pons, medulla, and then the exit of the spinal cord. All right, I just can't point there. So I have to imagine it. Now, this one right here. My nuclei, those areas of dense nerve cell bodies. All right. Tectum. Holy cow, what is that? Corpora quadrigemina. Red nuclei, substantia nigra. Any terms getting recognized here? Okay, you're recognizing quad, which means what? 4. Any other recognitions based on words here?
There's red.
Red.
And I don't know what negra means, but I'm assuming black maybe?
The black.
Superior is above.
Superior. This is one of the things that I'm trying to get you guys to understand. If you begin to take the terminology apart, it will help you understand. So, tectum, not a term that's used very often, but when you look at that term, one of the things that I associate with that term is something to the outside. Okay? So when we look at the midbrain, some of that nuclei, what they're going to make, okay, is going to be on the surface. Now, corpora quadridremina. It's telling me 4, okay? Now, the reason that this is so important, okay, even though these terms are looking crazy, all right, like how am I supposed to remember this? It's because of what they are associated with. So if we look at this area of the midbrain, very small area, all right, think of it having 4 of these nuclei, these areas of dense nerve cell bodies. 2 upper, 2 lower, 2 superior, 2 inferior. So think about that little region and having 2 bulges or 2 dense areas present. Now, somebody got inventive in lab that day, okay, and said, well, these are going to be colliculi. All right? Well, let them go with that, all right? Hey, if you get to discover it, you get to name it. All right? Now, look at this. Look at what this midbrain is involved with. Vision, skin, hearing, and some areas of my cerebrum. Special senses. We've got involvement with think about it. We have 5, right? Technically 6 now. Okay? Every single one of these is going to be a special sense. The special senses.
In all of the colliculi?
All of those colliculi.
It's all special senses.
Midbrain. A primitive portion. Now, the red nuclei. Well, that's given me the color they're going to actually look like. So if somebody was in neurology and they're at this area of the brain, and if they're at this area of the brain, something's really wrong, okay? But in dissections and so forth, when they cut, they would actually see red because of the blood supply. This area has a very high blood supply, so it was termed the red based on the blood supply. Unconscious regulation and coordination of motor activities. Unconscious regulation and coordination of motor activities.
Smooth muscle. Smooth muscle.
Well, it would definitely be the smooth muscle, okay? But it could also play a part in reflexes. The substantia nigra, all right? Nigra, that term means black, and what that's telling me, it has a lot of melanin. So in a cross section of that area, that is what it would appear to look like. So they would be saying this is where this nuclei would be located. These are interconnected with basal nuclei of the cerebrum. Now, let's take a peek. My cerebrum, I know, looks like an upside down kidney bean. Okay. Brainstem, all right. Cerebellum. And then my spinal cord. Okay. So if I'm thinking my brainstem, midbrain, pons, the medulla oblongata. Is everybody with me? My bellum, cerebellum, my cerebrum. We've said that when we say the term nuclei, we are saying this is an area of dense nerve cell bodies. So now we have identified that we have some of those nuclei in the midbrain, in the pons, in the medulla. Is everybody with me so far? So now, if I begin to try to pull together these nuclei, and I'm going to have nuclei throughout the regions of all areas of my brain. Is everybody following me? So, look at what's happening here. For example, the substantia nigra interconnected with basal nuclei of the cerebrum. What does the term basal mean? Bottom, the base. Okay? So that's telling me that in this area where I have these nuclei in my midbrain, if it's interconnected, I'm going to have connections with some basal nuclei in my cerebrum. They are now interconnected. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
What does that tell you?
That they work with one another?
We have to have communication between them. We can't just simply have cerebrum act on its own, cerebellum act on its own, midbrain, pons, medulla. They have to be connected. Why?
Because the nerves all connected.
Do what? Okay.